Road tests don't come much easier than this one. Behind me is the Peugeot RCZ R. It's a hardcore version of the brand's flagship coupe and the most powerful production car Peugeot has ever built. The sun's out, as you can see, and we're driving it on some of the most beautiful alpine roads in southern France to find out what all the fuss is about.
Even after 3 years on sale, nothing else on the road looks much like the RCZ. This R version looks really striking too, with forged 19-inch alloy wheels, a fixed rear spoiler at the back to increase downforce, and a smattering of R badges both inside and out. The pretty coupe body has spouted some serious kit though, with huge new brakes and calipers poking out of the wheels and matte black roof rails either side of the double bubble glass roof. But what's it like inside?
Now in here, the Peugeot is starting to show its age a little bit. Some of these knobs and dials are looking a little old-fashioned, particularly when you compare them to the ultra-modern, minimalist design that you get in the brand new 308 hatchback. Having said that though, the R model does get some really nice touches. This aluminium gear lever, that's straight from the 208 GTI. These bucket seats are brand new, they're really supportive and comfortable, but not too hardcore like a track car. And all this leather covering the dash and the door panels, that's picked out in this sporty red stitching. You can forget about the interior though, because this car was developed by Peugeot Sport. That's the same team behind the 908 Le Mans car and the WRC team before it packed in, and they know a thing or two about building a proper, hardcore road car. I'll tell you a bit more about what they've done to the mechanicals once we're on the move. When most manufacturers go to make a hotter version of an existing model, they tend to just turn the wick up a bit on everything, put some bigger alloys on, and then raise the price. Not so with Peugeot though. This car might use the same block from the 1.6 that's in the GT, but this time they managed to squeeze 270 brake horsepower out of it. That's nearly the same specific power output as the Mercedes A45 AMG, and as you can imagine, it's had a pretty dramatic impact on the performance. 0 to 62 now takes 5.9 seconds, torque is up to 330 newton meters and is available from just 1900 RPM, and we've been driving up the Col de Vence here in Nice for a couple of hours now, and it's a really demanding set of roads. And I have to say, driving the RCZ R is a really physical experience. That's not because it's too harsh. In fact, it feels much more like a road car than a hardcore track day special or anything like that. It's still really supple and it floats over bumps, kind of protecting you from the worst the road surface has to offer. But the manic way that the turbo delivers its performance, there's some response at low revs, but once you get it above 3000 RPM like this, it just goes ballistic. It suddenly becomes a lot noisier in here, and you have to keep grabbing through the short throw 6-speed gearbox looking for that extra ratio. It constantly demands your attention. The wheels kind of shift around as it puts the power down, and the Torsen limited slip diff pulls you around corners. You just have to be very aware all the time and make sure that you're governing that power as it goes through the wheels and it's not kind of just hunting around for cambers.
However, Peugeot hasn't just stopped with the engine. The RCZ R also gets bespoke toe and camber angles for the wheels, a wider track, stickier Goodyear Eagle F1 tyres and stiffer springs all round. All of this means that it turns in really sharply and has a massive amount of lateral grip, which is handy when you're racing up narrow mountain roads. But it drives more like a berserk hot hatch than a coupe.
The other thing, and this is going to sound like a bit of a strange criticism, is that it almost has too much grip. Because of the coupe body style, this really wide stance and the low centre of gravity, you have to drive it really, really hard to get the chassis to start to move around. That's kind of an odd thing to say, but if it was in, say, a taller hatchback body style like the 308, you just get a bit more lateral movement, which kind of engages you a little more. When you do get everything hooked up, then it's really exciting, but a lot of the time you're just sort of left feeling like it's a little too neutral because it has too much grip. Having said that, there are some advantages to sticking to that small engine. Peugeot reckon that it emits just 145 grams per kilometre and will return over 40 mpg, which is not to be sniffed at. And the boot's decent too, it's over 300 litres, although I really think for a hardcore version like this, they probably should have thrown out the rear seats, because to be honest, they're absolutely useless. You wouldn't fit anyone in there and you'd actually struggle getting a child seat in, to be honest. But other than that, I have to say I really quite like the RCZ R. It feels like a good first effort from Peugeot Sport. shop window for what the Peugeot Sport team can accomplish given a little time and money, the RCZ R is a cracking first effort. The interior might feel a little dated now, but they've spent the money where it counts, underneath, and as a result it feels like a seriously sorted bit of kit. However, it's also priced like one, and at £31,995 it costs about the same as a seriously well-spec'd Audi TT, which is probably a better all-rounder. As striking as this coupe body is, the car that's probably really worth waiting for is the 308R, which will use this raucous drivetrain, but with a modern interior and proper high-quality materials, and it's already in the pipeline.